Please welcome Kira Young.
Thank you, Swami, and thank you, listener friends, for joining us today. We're excited to welcome back a great guest with a lot of truth coming out of her operations. Susanne Posel, welcome back.
Hello, thank you for having me. I don't know if it's an operation.
I didn't know what to call it. Her operations, as this came out. What would you call it?
I really want people to know exactly what's happening so that they aren't fooled anymore and they can finally make a conscious decision of what they want to do about it.
To me, and I really like a lot of what you've been putting out lately, because a lot of people are really pretty freaked out. We had a lot going on this past week, and nobody knew what to make of all of it. And I don't think that we still completely know what to make of all of it. But a lot of what you were putting out there was really just look at this, look at this, look at this. Don't forget this. So, and I really appreciate that, because people can really go off, because it's very disturbing, all the things that have been going on this week. So where would you like to start?
Well, would you like to start with the MH17, and then we can move to Gaza if you want.
Yeah, that would be perfect. So what's your take on it?
When I was looking at everything that was going on in the news about it and all of the analysis and supposition and theories about the initial reports, I noticed that we've done this before. It's nearly the same. It's 1983 Korean Flight 007, which sparked the Cold War. This was during the Reagan administration, and it was a fight between Mikhail Gorbachev, USSR before it was Russia. And this KF-007 was used as a catalyst to create the threat of nuclear war between the USSR and the U.S., which could happen at any moment. Oh, my God. And it created a manufacturing defense bubble. And Reagan authorized trillions of dollars to be used to defend us against the Russians who might attack at any time. And we put ourselves in such economic straits after this was all over. And guess what? At the end of it, with Korean Flight 007, they said, oops, it was a misunderstanding. I want people to understand that this MH17 that went down, and there's lots and lots of theories and dot connecting, which is based on one piece of conjecture connecting to another. It's very, very simple what they're doing. And when they have a scheme or a plot line that works, they do it again. History keeps repeating itself. Why? Because they know that if you fell for it the first time, you're more likely to fall for it the second time. And if you don't fall for it the second time, that's when they change things up and maybe alter the plot line slightly, or maybe scratch it and go to some new plot line. So we were afraid of Al-Qaeda. So we were afraid of Al-Qaeda after 9/11. Now we're afraid of ISIS. Guess what? ISIS and the Free Syrian Army, who are Salafi jihadists out of Saudi Arabia. We're afraid of our own people again.
It's funny. Yeah, I mean, in even 9/11, it was all Saudis that supposedly did what happened, and Saudi Arabia never got invaded.
The best boogeyman money can buy.
Yeah, and it seems that it was a convenient distraction from quite a bit as well. Not only is it a psyop that's going to, that has the potential to create another Cold War, but it's also just distracting us from a lot of other horror. The one thing that struck me as odd was it was also the anniversary of the TWA flight that really looks like it accidentally got shot down. And certainly they don't want it to be a little slow news day, so, some of those rumblings would go on, right?
With this, they're trying to get into a war with Russia. Now, I don't think that they're actually trying to get into an actual war, World War III. You have to remember that right now, the BRICS nations, which Russia is part of, are having their 6th summit. BRICS nations have announced that they are finalizing their global bank that will rival the IMF. This is serious, folks. China was buying gold like it's going out of style. Why? Because they were bulking up for this new bank. This global bank is going to be, it's expected to put the IMF out of business. And the reason being is because now corporations, governments, even individuals can get a interest-free loan from this World Bank. And even the countries can keep their fiat. You can keep your yuan, you can keep your ruble. It's just what that ruble or what that yuan and all the other fiat currencies are worth is no longer based on GDP, which is on the backs of the citizens of that country, but rather that country's reserves in gold. That poses a problem for the technocrats.
It sure does, doesn't it? Who have created something out of nothing, which is still really nothing. So you got to keep that hidden. If your country's fiat is based on nothing and not gold as a global reserve currency instead of the U.S. dollar, which is based on nothing, then your country has no worth. Country is overnight. It sure
So
would.
going to war with Russia, or at least giving the appearance that we're going to war with Russia, is just another way to impose sanctions. Now, I want to remind guys that U.S. Senator Bob Dole in the 80s, right after Korean Flight 007 happened, was on Meet the Press to suggest that sanctions be used against Russia for their crime of shooting down the civilian aircraft, which I have to remind you again, it was, a misunderstanding. This, at the time, KF-007 was being used as a confusion point for the general public because it's egregious. I mean, with MF-17, I saw that the Huffington Post said, all of those AIDS scientists are dead. What if cure for AIDS was on that plane? And my head started to throb. I thought I was having an aneurysm. I don't know. We have the cure for anything that is wrong with you. It's called cannabidiol.
Yeah.
It is the molecule in the hemp and the marijuana plant that is the healthful part of the plant, the medicinal part. And with CBD, you can control, maintain, and cure. Even the National Institutes of Health are launching a study within the next 6 to 9 months regarding the use of cannabidiol to treat AIDS. It tells cancer cells to kill themselves. It boosts your immune system. So if you have complications from vaccines, if you have allergies, you think that you are have an allergy to gluten, which is actually a deterioration of your gut, this will cure that. You don't have to live with malnutrition, which a lot of people who have to go to gluten-free end up suffering from, because your body needs a certain amount of nutrients, and you're denying your body some of these nutrients because of this gluten allergy. You take the cannabidiol, and that heals you from that. So you don't have to go on being partially malnutritioned. Cannabidiol breaks the blood-brain barrier, so it has been shown to relieve symptoms of depression and other neurological disorders. We have the cure. I've
personally witnessed people with AIDS walk out of of where you go to die hospice care, because I was in California at the time, and it was legal to treat patients with cannabis, and I saw patients being treated with cannabis oil they were sent to hospice to die, and they walked out of there. And some of them haven't yet gone back, and that was almost, that was like 15 years ago at least.
This stuff is the cure. Now, I have to let people know that we're not discussing the legalization of marijuana. We're not discussing having to be in a state where marijuana is legalized or medical marijuana is legalized. Right. Cannabidiol is, by the FDA's own standards, they consider it a food ingredient. So it's not about marijuana. It's not about getting high. This is about the pure extract and obtaining the pure extract to treat diseases. There was a little girl about a month ago who had up to 300 seizures a day. She was just 7. And they had tried everything, and she was seizing so badly that she couldn't recover from one seizure to another before she'd come out of one, and she would only have maybe moments before she would go into another. And her body was breaking down. And her mother went to a dispensary, got a high CBD, low THC content marijuana, had the CBD extracted, and gave her daughter oral treatments under the tongue, because the saliva helps to break down the CBD and helps your body to digest it and to take it in properly. If you burn it, if you have high CBD content marijuana and you're smoking it, if you burn it, it kills the CBD. So you can't do that. Right. It has to be oral, preferably just a little drop under the tongue, and you just end up swallowing it. And this girl went from 300 seizures a day to maybe 1 a week. The day that her mother gave her the cannabidiol, she didn't have a seizure. The next day, no seizure. The next day, no seizure. The next day, no seizure. This was unheard of to them, because since the time she was 2, she was having seizures.
Susanne, can I ask you a question?
Absolutely.
Okay. Being a Swami and a lineage bearer of an ancient tradition from India, I am aware of the fact that in the Atharva Veda, people may have some familiarization with what are called the Vedas of India, the oldest written religious documents on this planet that people can even come close to agreeing on. Anyway, in the Atharva Veda, it is said that Shiva brought cannabis from the Himalayas to South India and gave it to humanity for the purpose of medicine. Also can be used for food and fiber, but it was primarily for medicine thousands of years ago.
We have in our brain receptors for cannabidiol.
Yes.
Naturally, it's part of the receptors that we have in our brain, the array that we already have. It is present in the neural net of animals as well. And most of these studies are done on dogs and cats and rats and so forth. And so this is a cure not only for us, but for animals. You don't have to watch your dog suffer. You don't have to watch your pet suffer. You don't have to take them to the vet and tell them that there's no hope, or tell you that there's no hope and that you have to put your dog down. Or you have an animal and they become part of your family, just like your children, just like your relatives. So this would be a cure for your animals as well. This would revolutionize so many industries if it were utilized. Zoos could use it for animals. Circuses, even in Hollywood where they use pets on sets. We wouldn't have to watch our loved ones suffering.
Susanne, have you seen the video on YouTube of Henry Ford's hemp car body that they're hitting with a sledgehammer and you can't dent it?
the government used to pay farmers in the 1920s to grow hemp in this country, just like they do now with corn and soybeans.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and actually they use it for the war effort. For
Hemp for Victory, a very famous film.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
We wouldn't have to kill the rainforests. We wouldn't have to use very much trees for the uses that we use them now at all.
No, hemp paper is far better. Hemp clothing is far more durable than cotton.
Less
we
chemicals,
could replace
too,
the plastic industries with the poisons and, no wonder they made it illegal.
That's a very good point, because just recently I wrote an article about Trident, which is a replacement that is being used in BPA-free products. The problem with Trident is that it causes horrible side effects, including severe dizziness, excitability, headaches, anxiety, vomiting, nervousness, sleep disorders, urinary dysfunction, heart palpitations, hallucinations, seizures, tremors, and macular disorders. And some of the adverse effects of Trident look like or mirror the symptoms of Gulf War syndrome and PTSD. And they've been using Camelback, who uses Trident in the military since the Gulf War. So our soldiers are being exposed every time they use this. It is an endocrine disruptor, just like BPA. It leaches into the liquid, just like BPA does. And
so now they can say BPA free because we've got something even worse for you.
Exactly. And it's
psychopaths in charge.
It is. It really is. It is a joke in alternative media that when they take out one thing, they'll just replace it with something worse. And they actually literally did,
Yeah.
Well, and for the extra stupid people, you can get water for your baby with extra fluoride.
Yes, you can. And you can feed
it
it formula, which is garbage. You can feed it garbage straight off because you're afraid of your own ability to lactate.
That's only how humans got here to begin with, but.
Along with fluoride, they put parabens in baby formula. And parabens cause breast tumors in men and women. Yeah. They also cause reproductive cancers and reproductive disorders. It also causes depression, obesity, because because of the nature of the chemical, it affects your neurobiology. So where you would have receptors working for serotonin and dopamine, it disrupts their ability to function properly. So you get depressed, you start overeating, you can't lose weight, your metabolism doesn't work correctly. This would lead to arthritis and inflammation disorders. And it's in baby formula.
I just saw a commercial. I don't watch TV all that much. This is one of the reasons why. But notification of a class action lawsuit against the manufacturers of Risperdal, which caused gynecomastia, which amongst bodybuilders, and that is called bitch tit. When you use certain steroid substances, it causes an abnormal growth around the nipples of men that is somewhat like a female breast growing. But anyway, Risperdal, which is an antidepressant or antipsychotic, one or the other,
antipsychotic,
has caused this in under 18 people that have been using it, and now there's a class action lawsuit about it. I was just like, oh my God, does it ever stop?
Yeah.
No, because we keep participating. As soon as we stop participating in our own tyranny, it will stop.
Mm-hmm. It's a lot of work, Suzanne.
It is.
Participating is a lot of work.
Our laziness and our complacency has gotten us here. Okay, so guess what, guys?
Yeah.
We're going to have to roll up our sleeves and learn how to be self-sufficient and learn how to care about our community and learn how to be innovative and learn how to be creative and create our own businesses and replace every single multinational corporation with our own businesses and support our local farmers and support organic, real organic food, not just the USDA based on Codex Alimentarius version of what's organic. And it's going to take some work, and we've got to teach our children now that this is important, that technology is great. However, we need to be the ones in control of the implementation and the ramifications of the technology, not Google, not Microsoft, not all these startups that are funded by Google Ventures and all these other little hedge fund corporations, where they're using this technology in order to have this back door so that they can do what they want with the information that this technology provides.
Yeah.
You know, I was thinking today, I'm a 50-year-old human being. And when I was a youngster in the small town in Illinois I grew up in, there weren't all these cookie-cutter corporate places to get your stuff. It was owned by people in your community, the grocery store, the dime store, as we used to call it. Those things are just about gone.
Yeah.
And the kids coming up today don't even know what that's like. They just know go to Staples, go to, Office Depot and Home Depot for your lumber. I mean, there used to be lumber yards, community places, owned by local people. And those things are just almost gone.
The places where they're still left are purposely not supported by, the corporate giants out there. So you can live in communities like that in America where that kind of stuff still lives, but your internet is going to be $100 a month, and you'll be 15 to 20 miles from the nearest grocery store, and everything they'll do whatever they can to make it harder than it already is to live independently. They'll make sure that they make it even harder to be in places like that. You have to pay the price. Yeah. I found out about something really interesting because I've been having a lot of trouble, with my internet oligopoly and living, just the challenges of living in the country. And we don't get cell service here. I have to stand on my tippy toes in this one particular spot to get and we live in the mountains, pretty much like foothill mountains. But what I found out is there's this area called the Quiet Zone, and it's half of it's in Virginia, the other half is in West Virginia, and we're right above that. And the reason it's supposedly a quiet zone, you can't have anything electronic in this area in West Virginia, is because they have the largest satellite dish, and they have this huge telescope, and they're trying to hear things from outer space. And if you are, if you have electronics or whatever, they'll come and shut you down so that they can hear space. And we live just above that area. Yeah. Pretty weird.
Wow.
Have you guys heard about the Quiet Zone?
No.
No.
I mean, Dead Zone, yes, but that was a Stephen King book.
It's actually enforced. So the few people that live there they can't even have certain types of toasters and things like that. They can't.
Wow.
It's enforced. You can't have any Wi-Fi at all. And there's a guy that drives around in a truck, and he tries to detect Wi-Fi, and he'll come shut you down if you have Wi-Fi.
Wow. We're in the same sort of situation where we're at here at the ashram on the river in the 100-acre woods. We're right outside of Charleston, Illinois, which is the home of Eastern Illinois University. But we couldn't get satellite TV. We can't get cable. We ended up getting satellite TV with a dish network dish, but. We were lucky, I think, in getting our internet DSL service through the phone company. Otherwise, we'd have had to go to one of those, Hughes or Dish or other providers.
Did you know Hughes is owned by the Dish?
No.
I'm serious. Yes, Hughes is owned by Dish. The other day, the Dish guy told me that as I was yelling at him and telling him they were evil, but. But the only thing I could get is Hughes. He said, "Oh, we own Hughes." So, yeah, it's only
the appearance of choice. Yeah, that's all people really need.
Yeah, but it's legal. It's perfectly legal because they write their own laws. So, just like all the other corporations.
Yeah, I can tell you that 2 days ago we were looking for car insurance. And we got a quote online. I'm not going to tell you with who. And then they called me. And the gentleman who was asking me questions seemed quite invasive because I was purchasing a product from them. And they have no business knowing what I did prior to me purchasing this product from them. And I asked the gentleman why he was asking these questions. And he said that it was for documentation purposes. And having a legal background, my ears perked up, and I said, what kind of documentation purposes are you speaking about? And he said, well, in case there's a he said, she said conflict, we have this recording to prove that you agreed to the things that you're agreeing to today. And I said, well, I have to end this call because it violates my Fifth Amendment right not to incriminate myself. And I said, you did not indicate at the beginning of this call not just that it was being recorded, but it was also possibly being recorded for purposes in any future litigation that we may go through. So I'm ending this call. And he scoffed and said, okay. I don't think he understood, and that's fine. I was probably the butt of a joke in the office later on that day. But people need to understand.
He doesn't know. He's just sitting there reading off the script he's given,
Yeah, but people need to understand when these corporations call you, and these calls are recorded for quality assurance purposes, you ask them what they define as quality assurance. And if they start saying things like, we're recording this call in case there's a conflict, we're recording this call for documentation, you end the call. Unless you are agreeing to this unwitting contract with them that in the event that something happens, they will use this recording against you. People don't realize when you pick up the phone and it's a corporation on the other side of that call, they're protecting themselves at every point legally, whether you are aware of this or not.
Well, and it doesn't make them money to make you aware of it.
Oh, absolutely. Because if something does happen between you, if you don't pay your insurance bill, then they can go back and use this call in court and say, well, they agreed, listen to this recording, they agreed to this, and they knew they were being recorded because it was told to them at the beginning of the call and they stayed on the call. So that by not hanging up right at that moment, you are agreeing to the terms that it is recorded. But you don't know that call could be used against you in a court of law. Mm-hmm. They omit that part.
Yeah, conveniently so. Yeah, they have all these legal protections, but that doesn't make they're the protections that they have moral or right. The law is few and far between. I mean, there's a few laws out there that, of course, everyone accepts as reasonable, but there's a lot of laws out there that are don't make any sense, and they just serve the elite.
Well, the first thing that I learned the first day when I went to school to be a paralegal was ignorance of the law is not a defense. That is actually on the books. your ignorance of the legal ramifications of any charges, any subpoenas, any legal suit or action that is brought against you is not a defense. When you agree to that document, you are then agreeing that you understand the complete legal ramifications of what is being brought against you, whether you do or not. And it is your job, according to the court, that you learn every consequence, every legal ramification of what is being brought against you. And if you don't, that's your fault.
Mm-hmm. And they make it very hard to get the proper representation as well. It is very expensive to hire a lawyer.
Yeah, it is very expensive. And then the cases are owned by Westlaw and Lois Law. They're actually owned, copywritten. So you have to have a subscription to Westlaw or Lois Law in order to get access to all of these records. But you can't do that if you're not an attorney or a paralegal that works under an attorney, because they don't want just the general public having access to all this legal information, all of these cases, because in a court of law, you have primary and secondary sources, primary being laws and ordinances and relative court cases to that particular state. But secondary sources of law could be something that happened in the state next to you or across the country, where the decision is applicable, and that is persuasive law. And a lot of cases are won on secondary sources and not just primary. So they make it very difficult for you to get access to these court cases and these opinions, so that you can't properly defend yourself. And then with the same kind of whirling dervish that they've got you on, you have to have a license from the American Bar Association in order to access this at all. So you're forced to use an attorney, and we don't really, when we get into a legal situation, we're not clearly thinking, so we usually don't pick a very good attorney.
Yeah, there's a level of desperation that affects the brain from making a good decision.
Oh, absolutely. There's a woman running for state Senate here in Washington State, and she is pushing the agenda that we have to have mediators instead of attorneys for foreclosures during the litigation process. The problem with that is anyone can be a mediator. You don't have to have a legal background or have gotten a certificate or a diploma or degree in legal studies of any level. Anyone can be a mediator. So why would you want any Joe Schmo off the street to come in and advocate for you in the courtroom where your house is on the line? That doesn't make any sense. Well,
it certainly makes sense for them. It probably helps people lose their houses a lot easier.
Sure, and it's great for the mediator industry because they could probably use, some new clientele. We need to pay attention. Just because it says BPA-free does not mean that the chemical that they replaced it with isn't going to kill you or make your life miserable. Just because a plane got shut down does not mean that you're being told the truth. Russia Today, RT, is Russian propaganda. The building, the headquarters of RT, is literally across the hall from the headquarters of RIA Novosti, which is the propaganda ministry, began as the Ministry of Propaganda back in 1944. Okay, and they're both funded by the Russian government. And just recently, Sarah Firth quit her 5-year job at RT because she was sick of reporting and hearing lies. The MF-17 coverage was the straw that broke the camel's back for her. And and I've written articles about RT and providing source links for the information that I just told you. And still I hear people saying, no, listen, folks, Russia today has done something extraordinary. They have convinced the majority of the truth movement that they are a foreign news agency that tells the truth, even though obviously are paid for by the Russian government and are a subsidiary of the former Ministry of Propaganda, now known as RIA Novosti. When Hillary Clinton said that they had made the propaganda war difficult, and I'm paraphrasing this, and that they're losing the information war, it's not what you've heard by other people who have used that as a catchphrase. What she meant was Russia today has done something that has paved the way for other outlets who are state-funded by other governments, like Saudi governments and Islamic governments, to convince you that just because they're foreign means that they're telling you the truth. You are being duped, and you don't realize it.
Repeatedly.
Yeah.
Just because they have Max Kaiser on there, just because they have Abby Martin, they get this perception of trustability.
They are celebcasters, okay? They are in the business of infotainment.
Yep.
When somebody tells you to buy silver and they happen to be the head of a silver brokerage, don't listen to them. When somebody tells you to buy cryptocurrencies and they happen to own one, don't listen to them. When somebody tells you that I'm the most adorable thing on the planet and you need to listen to me and I'm telling you so much truth, and even though a couple of years ago I denied 9/11 being an inside job, but that was misconstrued, don't believe these people. They are celebcasters. They look cute, they sound great, and they are skilled salesmen at getting you to believe what they have to say. It's called branded loyalty. Yep. Once they've got you, you're not going to question them anymore. You will follow them to the ends of the earth, and you might as well turn your television sets back on and start watching Katie Couric again because you fell for it twice.
Could I be on a level of just between Susanne and Swami and Kira and whomever may end up listening? Who does Susanne Posel tune into to get news?
I watch everything that I can get my hands on. I will watch Brian Williams. I watch The Daily Show. I watch The Colbert Report. I'll go and watch Russia Today, some broadcast, Tom Hartman. I watch this so that I know what the agenda that's coming out is. Because I don't have...
That's exactly what I do.
Right.
I don't have television. We threw away our television when our son was, it's been like 6.5, 7 years. So I don't have access to a lot of things. I go online and watch it, but I do watch it because I want to know what they're telling you.
But
because
you look at it with a jaundiced eye.
I know that it's a lie.
Right.
It's a lie, folks. They are celebcasters. Okay, you have infotainers and you have celebcasters. And these people look great. They wear their fancy, shiny suits, and they have all of these cool pictures of themselves looking off to the left pensively like they care about something. And it's garbage. It's no different than being a billboard for Nike and wearing their T-shirts. So you traded your Nike T-shirt for your favorite alternative media outlet. Same difference, folks. You're being marketed to. The product is the news that they're providing. The product is the cute person, male or female, that they're putting in front of you. And when they go to commercial, they know that you're going to be interested in these products.
Right.
They have their people do commercials for them so that you're programmed to hear that broadcaster's voice or the TV caster's voice. So when you hear their voice and you see this product, it becomes synonymous in your brain. And so when you hear them again, and every time you think about the product or you see the product, the two are correlated. You are bound to purchase something at some point, and you're going to do it because you care about, you look up to, you have admiration for that person who made the connection in your brain in the first place. That is one of the oldest tools in marketing. And I put out this meme today on a T-shirt and said, if you're buying T-shirts from your favorite alternative media outlet, then you are falling for the oldest marketing technique used. It's no different. It's like waking up to another dream. We have to realize that we woke up to another dream and then wake ourselves up, finally.
When I first got started in broadcasting way back in the 80s, I was taught by some pretty wise guys in the broadcasting biz. And when I was being trained in how to write a commercial, how to produce commercial copy, they told me, you have one purpose in writing this copy. Create a perceived need. That's it. If you can do that, you'll move units. Regardless what it is, you will move units. If you can create a perceived need in the mind of the listener. And if you can do that, by hook or by crook, doesn't matter, our job is to assist sponsors to sell units or services. And that's it. So, when you write to create a perceived need. And that's it.
What you just talked about just happened this week. Okay? If I don't write about something, it's not because I don't know about it or because I'm hiding the truth. It's because it's not worth writing about. It really isn't. Media outlets recently were claiming that the FBI was warning that self-driving cars could be used as lethal weapons. Do you know who this media outlet was?
No.
It was The Guardian. The Guardian talked about a document that they never produced. They had all of these source links in their article, and not one was the document that they claimed that they had obtained access to that was unclassified but restricted. They never produced it. Now, that's not indicative of the Guardian, because the Guardian is pretty good at providing the document when they claim that there's a document. But this time, they didn't. Why?
Right.
Because there probably isn't a document, okay?
Right.
Now, this happened before. This happened a couple of weeks ago with Eric Holder and a domestic terrorism task force that was allegedly being created under the Department of Justice. Guess what? There is no task force. That story originated from the LA Times, and they never provided a source link on the DOJ's website. So I went to the DOJ's website, and I combed that thing for 12 hours. And then I went to their YouTube channel because he supposedly mentioned it in an address. And I watched all of the recent uploads. And then I started using keywords trying to find it on some other website. It didn't exist. So guess what? There is no domestic terrorism task force at this time. It cannot be verified. There is no proof that the FBI is warning that self-driving cars will be used by terrorists as lethal weapons. You guys have to pay attention and ask yourself, is this true? Don't just repost it. Don't just share it. And for the love of God, don't make any decisions based on a headline.
You know what? I saw just this morning a clip of Diane Sawyer talking about Israel blowing up the Gazans, and the imagery that they cut in to her discussing how threatened Israel is by these bottle caps that the Gaza people can get a hold of. When she was saying the fear in Israel, and they are showing people from Palestine. When she is saying, this woman who's speechless about the attacks, it was an Arab woman, dressed, what? I was blown away, because you wouldn't, if you're not really thinking about it, you're not going to look that closely at the imagery that they're associating with the copy. What they were showing was people in Gaza trying to get their crap out of their blown-up houses on sheets, trying to carry their stuff somewhere. It wasn't an Israeli person. They show the pictures of these rockets coming from Gaza, and they're just like, we can get better stuff here for the 4th of July, pert near. Those things will hit a car and make a hole in it, or hit the concrete somewhere, or a building and knock a chunk out of it. They are wiping out entire buildings in Gaza with the Israeli armaments in response to these little bitty things. I mean,
I want to go into what's actually happening in Gaza, but I don't know how much time we have before we go to a break.
Well, let's just get it out of the way right now, and we'll be right back here on the bridge. Stick around. Kira Young.
Thank you, Swami. And thank you so much for this discussion, Suzanne. It's always eye-opening when you come on here. And I'm not one to get fooled by a lot, but there's a lot of moving pieces and a lot of roles being played, and it's always good to get your perspective and in looking at the things that are going on. Before we left for our break, Suzanne wanted to get into what's going on in Gaza. So take it away, Suzanne.
Absolutely. Well, we saw this before with Hamas. And Israel had to attack Gaza and attack the Palestinians because of Hamas. But what we don't know about what's going on in Gaza is that Israel has been systematically taking out 6 nations, including Gaza, over natural gas. Now, earlier this year, the Palestinian president and Vladimir Putin, the Russian president, got together to discuss the development of the Palestinian Marine Offshore Field, which is an area in the Mediterranean Sea filled with natural gas. It is assumed that there is 1.4 trillion cubic feet of natural gas in this area, valued at $4 billion. Now, this meeting that Vladimir and Mohammed, who is the Palestinian president, had earlier this year is in direct violation of a meeting, an agreement that was made in 1999. That agreement was with British Gas, who currently holds 90% interest in the Palestinian Marine Offshore Field. And they had obtained a 25-year license with the Palestinian Authority 15 years ago to explore this area, to develop the gas field, and to build necessary infrastructure. And the surplus of natural gas that was extracted from this area was to be supplied to Israel. Now, British Gas is supposed to have the contract to do this. And they will make sure that Israel gets their gas reserves promised. But Palestine recently went to Russia and said, we want you to develop this. And that causes a problem.
Mm-hmm.
Causes a problem for Israel. Israel is in a energy resource shortage right now. They have been behind the manufactured revolution in Egypt over natural gas. Before Mohammed Morsi went into power, Mubarak was supposed to uphold a contract that was several decades old, or I'm sorry, a decade old, that stated that 40% of the extraction from natural gas in Egypt would be given over to Israel. But Mubarak said, well, this is not economically advantageous for us, so we want to sell this on the market. Israel said, no, you don't, and fake revolution Mohammed Morsi gets put in place. Now, why was Mohammed Morsi taken out so quickly? Well, he had a year to reinstate that contract, and he decided, like Mubarak, that the money that Israel was willing to pay for the natural gas, 40% of the total extracted, was less than what they would receive on the global market. So he, too, decided not to honor and re-up the contract, and he got taken out.
Interesting.
What's happening in Syria? In Syria, we have the Free Syrian Army, who are made up of Salafi jihadists recruited by al-Qaeda, trained at a CIA base in Turkey, which is 5 miles from the Syrian border. And there was, in 2010, an agreement made by Iran, Iraq, and Syria to form a natural gas pipeline. Would move the natural gas out of Iran, through Syria, through Iraq, into the Mediterranean Sea, and give them access to European markets and Chinese markets. Israel said, no, I can't do that. So they're taking out Syria. Syria happens to be in the middle of the pipeline. If you have one side and you have the other side, you need the middle to connect it. Now we're going into Iraq with ISIS, who again are Salafi jihadists, some of the breakoffs from the Free Syrian Army, who happen to be the guys that we're funding and training. And by the way, Saudi Arabia has been sending arms through Libya, which is why J. Christopher Stevens died, to the Free Syrian Army. So Israel has also been systematically involved in the destruction of Syria and Greece. How does that connect to Israel and natural gas? Let me tell you. Cyprus has an exorbitant amount of natural gas offshore in the Mediterranean. They have not been able to develop it. And when the IMF and the World Bank came banging down their door, they went to Russia and asked for a loan with the natural gas as collateral. Russia said no. But Noble Energy, who is just like Halliburton, just like Koch brothers, but they're owned by the Israeli government, signed with Cyprus. Now they're extracting their natural gas, or in the process of beginning. And the same thing with Greece. We saw Greece being attacked economically by the IMF and the World Bank. Well, guess what? They have loads of natural gas, also extracting from the Mediterranean. And Israel and Noble Energy has signed a contract with them as well. Now, why is Israel doing this? They have discovered that they have something called the Leviathan Basin, which they estimate has 200 years' worth of natural gas. But they don't have the funds to develop it. So what they're doing is taking out their neighbors, who may be a competitor to them later on after they develop it, so that they don't have to worry about Syria and Iran and Iraq selling on the global market and causing them to lower their price. Because when you have competition, somebody has to give in and sell at a lower price and hope that they sell by volume and not by monetary value. Israel doesn't want to do that. They also are using the money that they are obtaining from developing Cyprus and Greece with Noble Energy to pay for the development of the Leviathan Basin. Now, the Leviathan Basin, when it is developed, will create this kind of scenario. Israel will become the number 1 or number 2 natural gas provider in the world. Which means what? Price. They get to control how much the gas is worth. Everybody else has to sell it at a lower price. in order to compete. Now, why is that important? Oh, my God. 2 years ago, the United Nations, as a climate change framework, Cristina Fuentes was the leader of this meeting and the head of the UN climate change framework. And she told all nations that petrol is out, natural gas is in. Natural gas is better for the environment, less CO2. Not true. Not true. Natural gas is extracted with fracking. Fracking causes earthquakes. Fracking causes the contamination of our water supplies. In order to extract the natural gas from the crust of our earth, they have to use millions and millions and millions of gallons of water that is absolutely contaminated. It cannot be used anymore. So we're talking about drought conditions. We're talking about earthquakes. We're talking about water supplies being restricted. Natural gas is not. Since the UN said petrol is out, governments stop subsidizing these petrol companies. You see Koch brothers and Halliburton and other companies like them moving to either having a natural gas division within their company or third-party subsidiary or third-party contracted fracking, hydraulic fracturing, blah, 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 companies working for them. We're moving to natural gas. Israel wants to make sure that when that transition becomes complete, they are the leader in natural gas export. And they can only do that if they take out the guys around them. And that is what is happening. The genocide of the Palestinian people has been going on far too long. But they are dying right now so that Israel can make money off of the new energy source commodity that we will be using globally. When you see these pictures of these dead children and these dead mothers and these dead husbands and the people crying around them and trying to pick up whatever they can out of the rubble, you are witnessing these people being slaughtered for money.
But they're militants and terrorists.
They said that a couple of, last time with Hamas.
Right.
That was
Paint anybody with that brush and the idiots will buy it.
Yes.
Yeah. And it's not hard when you really start looking into things it's not hard to understand why we're scaling up the psychopathology thing, because this is corporations and governments acting as psychopathic entities, destroying life for money. It doesn't get more evil than that.
No, you can't get more evil than that, because most of us either are parents or are very close to someone who is a parent or close to a child. And we love and care for a child, at least our own or someone close to us. And that baby could be the baby that's dead. It's just you live in this country, not over there. That's the only reason why your baby is alive and that baby is not. And we can have sympathy when we look at these parents and these relatives crying over their dead. And I want you to really understand that. I mean, or at least this point. I know that we say it so often that it becomes ineffectual. But these Palestinians who have been dying for the last 13 days have been dying over a contract that was originally signed with the Palestinian Authority, British Gas, to have 40% of the surplus, or all of the surplus, rather, sent to Israel. And because the Palestinian president sat down with Vladimir Putin in January of this year, Palestinians are dying right now. Because they tried to get a better deal and cut Israel out of receiving natural gas from Gaza. Palestinians are dying right now. That is the reason.
If I were the Palestinian Authority, I would also wish to go to the folks running Gazprom, who have got Europe by the short hairs, if they wish. You know? They're only doing what's intelligent. It's not a bad thing.
Yes, every country, if the country has natural resources within its country, that country has the right to do with it as they please. Nobody has the right to come into somebody else's. It's like going over to somebody's house and your kids are playing with their kids and your kid steals the other kid's toy. You can't do that just because you were invited as a guest into someone's home. You can't.
And then you kill their kid because they squealed about it.
Exactly. That's exactly what's happening.
Yeah.
Think about it that way.
Yeah.
You know, it's not hard to also to understand why natives might really identify with Palestinians. You know, it's the same old modus operandi, different day. But the psyop continues to play for each and every one of us in however we've been damaged by the system.
Yeah, this happened in East Timor several years ago. I think it was 2009. The East Timorians happened to be standing on an exorbitant amount of petrol under their feet. So the United Nations came in and took out their government and put an interim government with blue berets and blue helmets sitting at guard. And the East Timorians, who had had their homes burned down and their families killed, the men who were left picked up whatever they could find and started killing the UN soldiers. And they called them rebels. They're not rebels. They just happen to stand on ground that is filled with petrol. That's not their fault.
And they're trying to defend themselves and their families. And what would you do? The exact same thing.
Right.
Yeah. Yep. And for anybody who doesn't know, the Koch brothers, who I'll call them that along with Ted Orvich, the Koch brothers, they a few years ago got caught. First of all, Indian land has been fractionated, so the government holds Indian land in trust and allows gas and oil companies to come on and take their fill and then pay the Indians pennies on the dollar for it. Brothers, trucks that were going and taking the oil and gas off of the reservations and already paying pennies on the dollar for it, were caught calibrating their trucks so that they could take more for less, even more for less. And they were doing that to the poorest people in America because they're psychopathic, evil motherfuckers. I mean, I just don't know how else to if they were caught, they got a slap on the wrist. So if any one of those Indians that they stole anything from them, they would be in jail immediately.
Right.
You know, it's not equal. The more you take, the more you get away with it. The less.
The only reason they handed out the infected blankets was because they couldn't drop bombs on them yet.
Washington State.
So now,
and here in Washington State and for most of the Pacific Coastline, Senator Maria Cantwell and Patty Murray and House Representative Derek Kilmer and Denny Heck have decided that they're going to create the National Maritime Heritage Area in Washington along the Pacific Coastline. So what does that mean? That means that it is a designated area to encourage strengthening partnerships and collaboration with naval interests as well as economic development and heritage tourism. That is directly tied to the World Heritage Sites. That is UNESCO. The United Nations, under UNESCO, owns 144 of the most precious areas of our world. And now the Pacific Coastline is under attack to be controlled by the United Nations ultimately through UNESCO, through the World Heritage Sites, and with the help of Maria Cantwell and her friends.
Same trick, different day.
Exactly.
Wow.
We have a problem.
What do you do about it?
We have a problem that we don't pay attention. We take little sound bites and we take little clips and we take little articles and then we say, oh, man, that's bad, and we go on. And the next day we do the same thing. And we don't realize that those sound bites and those clips and those articles are coming out and telling you a story if you just pay attention. That's how you dot connect, by the way. Not with like a theory and then you like look for a proof that it's true. That's scientific method if you're using it. But if you see a storyline happening, at least I do. I've been doing this for almost 4 years. I can see that something might be talked about today, and then 2 months later they're talking about it from a different angle. And I realize that there is a plot line happening, and it's happening incrementally. That's what we mean when we say things happen incrementally, because they finalize one part of the plan, and then they finalize another, and then they finalize another. And those finalizations become reports. And if you collect those reports over time, you will see, connect the dots, the pattern. And if you want to go a step farther, you can be like Shirley MacLaine or Dean Nixon and make a prediction. But allegedly today is the day that the IMF or there's going to be an economic crash. Guess what, folks? There isn't going to be an economic crash today. There's nothing going on today. This is our brain's necessity to create patterns where there is none. It helps us out when we're trying to recognize objects in our visual field, but it doesn't help us mentally when we're trying to understand how to navigate through our world.
One of the big problems with the truth movement is that when we start to put all these different pieces together, and it's just like, wow, wow, wow. And then, just like the natural world works, there's ebb and flow. And so we expect that some people, it's kind of like people get addicted to it or something. They expect to see more connections when they're just not there yet. It hasn't been revealed yet. And it's that level of discernment. It takes time to really develop that, I think.
Absolutely. I'll give you an example. Most people can relate to this. When you buy a new car, you buy a Toyota Camry. And all of a sudden you start seeing Toyota Camrys everywhere you go. And you start comparing yours to theirs. Looking at the older models, looking at the newer models, trying to justify, oh, well, my car is good, because of this, that, and the other compared to those. But before you bought the Toyota Camry, you really didn't notice any other Toyota Camrys. That's the same thing. When you are alerted to a possibility, you start creating patterns and seeing connections where there is none. And it's just obviousness. There's just the same amount of Toyota Camrys driving on the road as before you purchased your Toyota Camry. You just have one now, so you're more acute to seeing them. That's it. That's all. We don't even understand how our brains work. How are we supposed to figure out how to use them?
Just take a test.
We start supporting those in our immediate community. If we can just do that one little step, we're gonna make a lot of yardage.
And if we can just talk to each other without judging each other, that helps a lot too. It's really important because sometimes we don't know what we believe until we really have a good conversation with another person. Instead of just bouncing things off yourself, it's nice to have a community of people to bounce things off of, and the more we don't judge each other.
Varied perspectives.
Yeah, I think we'll get further the more we, leave judgment to the side and just listen and share.
Yeah, there's a strange phenomenon in the truth movement where you tell your friends and your family and they think you're nuts, and then you go truth your friends and you feel much better. And what it creates is a psychological isolation and sometimes a physical isolation where the friends and the family just don't come around and see you anymore, don't invite you to the family functions anymore. They don't want to listen to it. And so that is a very useful, very subtle tactic that cults use, where they isolate you from the people that you know and love and who have known and loved you for many years. And yet this one instance now separates you to the extent where you can't be around them anymore, or they can't be around you. And who do you have left to turn to? But those who believe the same way you do. The problem with belief is that it's very rarely, if ever at all, based on facts. It's based on how I feel about the facts. It's based on how I feel about the information.
Which can change like the wind.
Right. Exactly.
Knowledge doesn't change. Truth is self-supporting, no matter which direction you look at it from.
And it needs no justification, and it is what it is. And it doesn't take your liking it, and it doesn't take your agreement or accord with it, or your belief or your faith in it. Because whether you believe it or not, it still is.
Yeah.
Go ahead, tell me you don't believe in gravity, then jump off a roof. Okay.
I always think about that song. What was that artist's name? I Believe I Could Fly. I used to say, okay,
Kelly.
Go ahead.
Yeah, really. I'm not following you, buddy. I'll watch you go down, though, and I'll put it on YouTube. Look what this stupid one did.
That isolation that people go through when they start seeing patterns and want to talk to other people about it, and most people actually, they don't want to talk about it. It's too much trouble and too much work, and what if it really is true, you know?
Right.
That isolation.
And hey, aren't the Kardashians coming on soon?
That's what we go through when we're targeted as well by a psychopath. If you are, it's that divide and conquer. So pay attention to who you're divided from, but also pay attention to who you're divided to,
right,
or with, because that's all part of it. And that's all part of what's going to be your truth and what's revealed to you.
Yeah,
question everything.
If you yourself or anyone you know has ever been in an abusive relationship, you understand what we're talking about right now. Because the abuser usually isolates its victim.
Yep.
So the wife is getting beaten, or the husband who's getting beaten, stops talking to his friends and family to hide the scars. Don't invite people over so they don't see the destruction inside the house.
Can't have private phone conversations.
Exactly. It's not just a cult. It's a psychological tool that is used by groups or individuals who are playing a psychological game with you. Maybe they're corralling you to believe in something that you wouldn't normally believe. Maybe they're getting you to do something you wouldn't normally do. But you're the one who's going to do it, not them. So you're the one who's going to get in trouble. So you better make sure that it's something you really want to do.
Yeah. And if it's not, it's better off being alone.
If it's not, call up. I have, my mother doesn't listen to me, or she thinks that it's cool what I do. She doesn't get it. But I have a great relationship with her. Speak to her on a regular basis. Because I realize that my relationship with her is more important. If she sees that by getting rid of all the fluoride and by using a triple water filter and by eating organic and by taking time to enjoy our life, if she sees that it's having a positive effect on me, she's going to come to me and say, "What are you doing? Because you seem happier than I am." My cousin, who I speak to on a regular basis, she, again, thinks it's neat, but she doesn't take it seriously until a couple of months ago when her husband came down with cancer and had a third of one of his kidneys removed and asked me for advice. And I gave her natural remedies. I gave her source links. I emailed her with information that they're now using. So if you are the change, if you actually apply your belief system to your life and it's a betterment and it's a positive, people around you will come and ask you what you're doing and you can share that with them. At that point, they are receptive.
Right, right. You can't run around with a club going, Rockefellers, Rothschilds, They go, you're scaring me. Get the hell out of here. Honey, exactly. Coming on. I ain't got time for that.
You don't have to get in anyone's face.
I was at the store recently, and we were purchasing milk, and one woman made this comment because she was getting milk from another door, and she said, wow, the price of milk is so high. And I said, yeah, and it's the same milk as it was when it was 29 cents a gallon. She says, I remember that. It sparked a conversation. Now, everything I told her, she may or may not look that up when she gets home. But because she had a positive experience, and I let her initiate the experience, I just responded to a comment that she meant rhetorically. She now has access to information she may or may not have had before. That's all. You're just a farmer. You're just planting seeds, throwing them out like Johnny Appleseed. Maybe something will grow. Most likely it will. When we are not forced to do something, we are receptive to it. And if we think that it's our own idea, we're even more receptive to it.
Yes.
So when my cousin came to me and said, you know a lot about natural remedies, what should we do? The doctor is giving us this advice. What do you recommend? That was the first time I've had this kind of conversation with my cousin since I started this almost 4 years ago. She came to me. And now they are doing to the best of their ability. I know she's not following my advice 100%, and as well she shouldn't, because I provided her information source links for her to go do her own research, because that's her husband's body. He has the right to make the decision what happens to him. He had a cancer scare. He now has an obligation as a husband to her to take care of himself if he chooses to do so. But if it doesn't come from the other person, then they are not going to be receptive to anything that you have to say.
Right. If they're not asking questions, they don't want to know.
Yeah, if you're in the park, with your kids, I'm in the park all the time with my kids, and sometimes people will look up and say, wow, that's interesting up there. I've never seen that before, and I'll make a comment. Yeah, isn't it interesting? They do all this geoengineering, so they're able to create these weird patterns. And they look at me and go, what do you mean? Bam, a conversation has now been opened.
Right. And you didn't scare the hell out of them first.
No, I made a joke about it. Guys, humor goes a long way.
And that's something the psychopaths can't even do.
No, because it's part of their game to beat it into you. They get off on beating it into you. They get off on your misery from your friends and your family and your wife or your significant other not caring about you, loving you, not wanting to hear it anymore. You're stuck in your basement or your attic or whatever, and you got your earphones on and you're watching all these documentaries, and you look out the blinds really, anytime you hear a siren going off, and they feed off of that. They laugh knowing that you're doing that.
Yep, they're soaking it up like a gravy with a biscuit.
Yeah.
That's one of the hardest things there is to do, is once you get over your own individual level of, if you wish to call it cognitive dissonance, whatever, when you are adjusting your mindset to include these new bits of knowledge that just wreck the way you thought things were, it's so hard, and then immediately you want to run out and share this. Oh, my God, did you know this is happening? Illuminati, blah, 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 Miley Cyrus, blah, 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 and they don't want to hear it.
Yeah.
No, but we can all agree that Miley Cyrus and her twerking thing is damaging, and that is a great way to start a conversation, Yep. We look for commonalities, people camaraderie, and any way that we can facilitate a friendship, even if it's topical, even if it's just in that moment with another human being. We look for that. We crave that. We're social creatures. So again, if you are coming to someone and talking about geoengineering or chemtrails, and sometimes I'll just drop a link to someone and say, hey, I watched this documentary. When you get a chance, you should take a look at it. I don't talk about it anymore. It's up to them.
Right. Wait for them to get back to you.
Absolutely.
With a question.
If they
and
know
just
you,
ask for their opinion.
Yes, people want to think that they're being heard. So if your agenda is to just get this information out to them, the very least you can do is ask them what their opinion is and strike up a conversation. But if you care about the other person and you do have an open mind, you have to realize that some of the things we think might be happening might be something else. And if we're stringent in our belief system, we have then fallen into another trap where I know what the truth is, even though there are obviously holes and places in your theory where there's absolutely no way you could have obtained information that would prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that that is the conclusion. That's where the faith comes in. And if faith has to be used, we're talking about religion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Just follow the word faith with, as we were just talking about, belief, which can change like the wind depending on your emotions at the moment you come across it. That's not it. And easily manipulated.
Yeah.
That's why in this Swami's tradition, we leave it to the student to directly and consciously experience what we're talking about within themselves. Then come and ask questions. And we're happy to open up about things. But until these things are happening and they are directly and consciously experiencing them, it's all just belief. It's all theoretical. You can intellectually agree with it, but if you're not directly and consciously experiencing it for yourself, you don't know.
And we have to understand the difference between knowledge and wisdom. You can know a lot, but if you don't apply any of it,
right,
then you're not very wise.
Wisdom is knowledge put into action. The wise man doesn't hurt himself because he spent years hurting himself and then figured out not to do that anymore.
Yes, I've got a friend, he's 63, and he and I were talking yesterday, and he's at that place in his life, and I'm at a strange place in my life because I'm 37, and I'm realizing in movies and in television and commercials that I am being directly targeted to. Sometimes we'll watch like a mainstream movie, and I'll hear them playing music from the 80s and themes from my childhood or preteens, and I'm like, okay. They're marketing to me. Now I'm a demographic, and I'm starting to deal with the fact that I'm old enough to be this demographic, and it's so obvious to me. But I was speaking to my friend yesterday, and he's in his 60s, 63, and he's realized that he's only got 20 years left, and he's a baby boomer. And the damage that the baby boomers did to future generations because of the stupid choices and the inaction that they did in the 80s, that he has an obligation to leave some sort of legacy to do something right before he dies. And he is old enough to know when he's an attorney, when he goes into court and there's a young prosecutor popping off his mouth, he'll say, okay, well, let's get back to the facts. He understands when somebody is not able to hear you, and he doesn't talk to them. And he understands that just because they don't hear you today doesn't mean you have to be unkind to them tomorrow. And he's known and loved by a lot of people from a lot of different walks of life and ideology. And it is because, at his age, he's realized that you can't make somebody do something. And if you really want to change what's going on around you, you have to actually do something that facilitates change. You can't just keep arguing and complaining about what's happening. You have to do something different. If you know that there are chemicals in your food and your drink that are bad for you, stop buying those products. Otherwise, stop complaining. If you do not appreciate the fact that your congressman over this past week pledged undying support to Israel for the continued genocide of the Palestinians over natural gas, you need to let these people know. And I'm not just, I write to my congressman and they don't respond. Good. Write to them every day. Forward. Keep hitting the send button every day. Annoy the crap out of them. You wouldn't. It's amazing what people do when they get annoyed. Think about how your kids get you to do something. My son will ask me the same question as many times as it takes for him to get what he wants, over sometimes weeks. Okay? He's relentless. Mm-hmm. Be that relentless.
Look at what little old Luke Radowski has done.
I have one of those.
Look at what little old Luke Radowski has done.
Look at what they're
when
doing.
There are legions of human beings doing that same sort of thing in their own way, we'll be in a position to perhaps manage more. But without that involvement personally, it's not going to happen.
Exactly. Instead of calling up Fox News and saying Howard Stern's farts was the cause of the bombing in Gaza and laughing about it, why don't you call Fox News when they're talking about this and ask them why they put pictures of Gaza up when they're talking about destruction in Israel? And keep calling back and have like a group of people calling them.
Yeah.
Do it live on the air. Flood their emails. Flood their newsroom. Seriously. If we don't like the fact that they're lying to us, let's make it absolutely miserable for them every single time they lie to us. They'll either stop doing it or they'll stop doing it. Nobody likes to be annoyed. And it seems so simple, and people are laughing at me. I can hear them right now. But think about how your life and your interaction with people goes. And when you act and react to their actions and reactions, it's the same thing on a global scale. It's the same thing in social media. It's the same type of psychology happening. Those people are human too. They have the same interactions and reactions with the people around them. So people hate being annoyed. They hate being shown that they are liars and cheats. So show them and show everyone that they are liars and cheats. Stop buying their products. Stop supporting them.
What happens with the cockroaches when the lights come on?
They scurry.
There you go. Y'all think about that for a little bit. We're going to take a musical break. Go get yourself something to drink. Go relieve yourself of something to drink, whatever you need to do. We'll be back here on The Bridge. This is The Bridge. Please welcome our host, Kira Young.
Thanks, Swami, and thanks, Suzanne, for this great conversation. Right now, we're fortunate to welcome Thomas Sheridan as well to help us wrap all this up here. Welcome, Thomas.
Hi, Kira. Hi, Suzanne. Hi, Swami.
Hello.
Hello, fuzzy Irishman.
What we've been talking about and get his take on it all. You want to do that, Suzanne?
We were talking about Gaza and natural gas and Egypt and Syria, Cyprus and Greece, who have all fallen victim to Israel over natural gas. So what's your take on it?
I think it's just disgusting what's going on there at the moment. I don't know how anyone with an ounce of human decency could actually support Israel at this moment. I'm not talking about, Israeli people as such. Because I know there's plenty there who don't like what's going on. I know a few of them myself, but the actual government there are just a bunch of psychopathic thugs, a bunch of hitmen they're basically, Israel is basically Vinny the hitman for the resource companies. That's all they are. It's not just oil and gas, it's also huge amounts of phosphates. Israel has an enormous amount of phosphate that's used in agriculture, so Monsanto wants that as well. Yeah, I agree. It's just disgusting, and the Israel thing right now is the litmus test. If you cannot come out and say right away that Israel is a war criminal, and I don't care if anyone calls me a Semite, good luck with that one, considering my family. But, well, tough shit. I mean, this is the litmus test. Do you either stand on the side of humanity and against Israel right now, in the hope of actually getting decent Israelis to actually say enough of this bullshit and take back their country and boycott Israel. Don't buy anything Israeli. Don't buy anything produced by Christian Zionists. That's the end of it. We're talking about an apartheid situation here in South Africa. I was very active in the anti-apartheid movement in South Africa, and that worked. And let's do the same.
It's either that or you got to get your little Zionist card.
Yeah, my attitude is, look, I love Jewish people. Fuck Israel, and that's the end of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And there's a real
all the governments.
Same with all the governments. They're just a bunch of fucking psychopaths. Pardon my French. And I'm in a very angry mood about it right now. And I can't imagine how it's going around Ireland here today. Everybody is disgusted at Israel. I can't understand how, and it's the same in every other country, how an Israeli person can actually feel good about the whole world thinking they're vicious thugs. I don't understand how that actually makes them, how their government, but it's the arrogance of psychopathy. It's the arrogance of these bastards who are running that country, and they know that Uncle Sam will keep the money flowing. They know that the Cameron and England and the rest of them will all stand behind him because there's huge defence contracts. There's all kinds of contracts. It's a big sugar daddy for many of their friends who own corporations and stuff like that. And I long to see a day when Israel is liberated and free from, Zionism.
I so love seeing my Hasidic brethren in their black hats with their ringlets and their beards holding up placards saying, "We are not Zionists!"
But it's not only like that. It's like when I lived in the United States, you meet so many Jewish people there who see Israel as this crackpot foreign country, and the media never reflects that. There's just this kind of notion in the media. Every Jewish person in the world loves Israel and will excuse all their behaviors. But a lot of Jews I met that don't live in Israel, they look upon Israel as just like crazy cousin or something. They don't relate to it in any way. It's a foreign country.
And also, I've noticed hi everybody. I've noticed on the news on this current nonsense that they're always saying that Israel has got the right to defend itself, but they never say Palestinian has got the right to defend itself. Do they?
Well, I can tell you for a fact, right? What's happening in Gaza today is a gigantic experiment, and that's why the globalists have their foot off the pedal and not doing anything about it, because they're using the Palestinians in Gaza, and they're not just Palestinians there. There's other kinds of people living there. There's all kinds of people living in Gaza. They're using them as an experiment to see how a society copes with this kind of bullshit. That's really what it comes down to. And those people who say, "Oh, it's just Gaza," I got news for you. It's Gaza today. It'll be London, Manchester, New York, Paris, Dublin, other cities tomorrow. It will be. Toronto, you name it. It will be. They're just using that as a litmus test to see how much they can get away with rounding millions of people into a single spot, just like Agenda 21, and then putting them through an incredible trauma, and seeing how they react. And that's as prisoners. And that's really what's going on here. It's the same thing that Cromwell did in Ireland and in Barbados. It's the same thing. It's an experiment.
And you've also got to take into consideration, the focus is on Gaza, But what's happening in the West Bank is that these pockets of Palestine surrounded by walls, massive walls, and it's loads and loads of ghettos, effectively being segregated from each other. So the people have to go.
Yeah.
If they go in like half a mile to the next wall bit, and they have to go through, there's an Israeli road going through. You have to it might take 6 hours to get there. And I think in Gaza, it's a big piece of land that's cordoned off, rather than little pieces of land that are basically prisons.
Yeah, I heard those stories. If someone wants to go to get milk from the shops, they might have to get on a bus and ride it for 2 hours.
Wow. Sounds like a reservation.
The same kind of idea, Kira. Yeah, the same kind of idea.
Yeah.
That same concept, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Enclaves and enclaves.
Divide and conquer.
Yeah,
Same MO, different day.
And on the day when humanity, that's everybody who's listening to this, stands up and says, that's going to be enough of that. We can make changes.
Well, it's happening. That's why they have this false flag in the Ukraine. Because people are disgusted.
Yeah, I've got Israeli cousins, and one of them was telling me that the army come into the schools when the kids are about 10 to do aptitude tests to see which part of the military they're going to go into after they go to school. So it's a complete militarization of children, and they're brainwashed from a very early age.
Yeah, it's terrible. Yeah, Israel is the world's largest cult compound. That's really what it is.
And this has nothing to do with the Jewish religion.
Nope.
Nothing.
Nope.
The Khazars, the Zionists, are hiding amongst the Jews.
Yes.
Because it gives them cover. That's it.
It's like blaming Catholics for the Roman Empire. You can't. It's not that simple.
No. Where'd Suzanne go?
It's a nightmare.
I'm listening.
Oh.
The fact that the genocide of the Palestinian people has been going on so long, and it's severely underreported, is a tell of where we are as a social consciousness, of what we accept and what we stand against.
And that genocide of the Palestinian people went on during the Ottoman Empire. A lot of people don't know that. But the Palestinians were also brutally treated in the same way Native Americans are treated by the Ottoman Turks, the Ottoman Empire. They were treated as the same way as second-class citizens. It's been going on for a very, very long time.
And also, during the Ottoman Empire, it was the Armenian genocide as well, which has been completely, carpeted over.
Yeah, how many Armenians do you need? Almost none.
Yeah. I've met two.
We have a few pockets of Armenian communities in America.
But that's it, really.
Yeah.
We can't
Creative
allow.
communities.
Yeah, we can't allow this to continue. They are literally being murdered because Israel wants control over natural gas resources. And we talk about that to the point where we become desensitized to it, but every time you see a picture of what's going on in Gaza, I want you to remember that. That should make you so furious you can't even sit in your own skin, because the only difference between them and you is that you live here.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
That's it. That's how quickly our rights can be taken away, or our freedom can be taken away, or our illusion of freedom, or our right to life.
Exactly. You could just declare Amish people in Pennsylvania as subhumans and terrorists if you wanted to take their land tomorrow, and it's the easiest thing in the world. All you have to do is control the media and push that bullshit out there.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And so limiting our access to social media, or limiting how we share our information, is the next big is the next big push in order to control the narratives that are available to us. Because we're already showing that there is a lot of people with a conscience out there who are outraged and want to do something about it.
If you start doing that, if you start really trying to shut down the internet, people are just going to be more pushed to using things like Tor, where you're completely anonymous, and having we will be having the servers and the ISPs to get people onto the internet. They can't shut the internet down, can they, ever? They can
even if they did, I'd start making fanzines. I know Kira and the rest of these and Susanne would do the same. I would start making newsletters and pamphlets and photocopy things and just start mailing them out. I wouldn't stop.
Mm-hmm.
You know, this is the mentality. These psychopaths in charge have to get this into their heads. That, okay, they can shut down TV and turn it all fluff like Miley Cyrus and all this crap. And they can do it with other things, but they'll never stop the flow of information, ever.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, even hobos in America during the Great Depression, this is like another one that's never talked about. All these like unemployed men who tried to travel across America on the railroads, they were brutally murdered by railroad police. They invented their own language in terms of this hobo kind of like symbolism they created. It was almost like hieroglyphics. You will never shut us down, you bastards. Remember that.
Mm-hmm. You
can kill the internet, you can kill the radio, you can kill everything. You'll always find a way to reach the rest of the tribe, and you will never shut us down.
Yep. Even if we have to use code.
Even if we have to use code, even if it's just like a piece of paper rolled up like African American slaves did, it'll be just handed from one to the other. You will never shut us down, ever.
I like that sentiment very much. And the fact that I've found all of you that are here today, it gives me hope.
Yeah.
A lot of hope. It really does. Thanks for joining too, Sonic.
It's okay. I've been listening to the show.
Would anyone like to wrap this up? Suzanne?
I think that we can take away from this that the theme is it's time for us to know what we know and make conscious decisions that affect real change, that stop the things that we do not like in this world, even if it inconveniences us or causes us to do things that we weren't doing because we were relying on the conveniences of our technology and our culture. Even if it's just learning how to sew a button onto your shirt instead of getting rid of it and buying another one.
Beautifully said.
Say that again, Thomas?
Everywhere you go. Some of them are going to fall on rocks, some will fall in the water, but some of them will fall in fertile minds.
Yeah, I agree with what Susanne and Swami said then. It's just like, it doesn't matter. Who gives a shit what they're up to? We can just go on doing our thing. We don't have to expect them to like become human beings out of the blue. It doesn't matter. We'll develop a new world for ourselves, a new reality. We'll do it, a new culture. It doesn't matter. We don't need their permission. We'll just ignore them. We'll create our own media and, to help them.
And that's it, isn't it? It's don't pay them attention. Don't pay attention.
Just build a new code on the sun.
Focus
it's
on
really hard for them to manipulate you when you're ignoring them.
Yes, be aware, but don't give them attention. Don't ask them for permission. That's a big one.
Yeah. That's huge. That's huge
I'm not.
there.
I don't care. I don't want the New York Times or anyone else to feature me. I'm perfectly happy with the U.S. Independent, The Bridge, Type 1, and anyone else who gives me a voice. I don't need that. I don't need the accolades of the monster.
Mm-hmm. In fact, you know you're on the right track. Right, and you know you're on the right track when you're not getting it. You know, there's whistleblowers inside the government. There's whistleblowers outside the government. We're all blowing a whistle of our own kind. You know, of our piece of the truth that we've been able to figure out so far, and finding each other. It's like hearing that whistle off in the distance and saying, "Hey, what did you find out?" And it's perfect.
Yep.
Any last words? Thanks so much, you guys. Any last words?
Can I just ask someone to send a friend of mine I've been teaching his son how to play music, and he's had an aneurysm and he's in hospital at the moment, and he's looked after. So if anyone could send good vibes towards my friend, I would like that. Because his name is Kieran, and he's a lovely man, and his son is a lovely young lad as well. And I was playing music with his son yesterday, and he took ill and was rushed to hospital, and he's under observation now. But it just dawned on me how important it is that we maintain our humanity in the face of these monsters, because the decent people will always survive. So if anyone could send my friend Kieran good vibes when he's in hospital now, that would be beautiful. And to his family.
Done.
Yeah, you got it.
What's coming up next week, Kira?
Next week we have Ted Torvich back. So, because we didn't have him the first time, so that's going to be a lot of fun. I can't wait to talk to Ted. And then Thomas is coming back after that, and Carrie Lee, and we're going to talk about the breakdown of the family. And then I'm going to take a break, and then I have some more guests lined up and more panels. And I invite people to give me their ideas or tell me when they want to be part of a panel. So thanks a lot, you guys. This is wonderful.
Thank you so much.
Great show.
Yes, thanks, guys. I'm sorry I only came at the end. I was working, but I look forward to listening to the rest of it. It sounds like it was great.
Excellent.
All righty. That wraps it up for today. Thanks for coming and hanging out with us on the bridge. We'll see you right here, whether it's live or in the archives, next week.